Good evening, good evening. Welcome. Please type in the chat where you're joining from today and how many people are watching with you. If you are able, please also acknowledge the native land which you occupy. And sometimes a helpful tool is native-land.ca. So again, welcome, welcome. Type in the chat where you're coming in from today, how many are with you, and the native land which you occupy. Love to see your voices start to fill this room. Wonderful. Timothy, thanks for being here from Florida, Seminole land. Wonderful. Anybody else willing to join Timothy as you enter the space here with us? We're really excited to have you here tonight. Who else? Please type in the chat where you're joining from, how many people are with you, and if you're able, the native land which you occupy. Great. We got some more folks coming in. Andrew in Brooklyn, Lenape land. Lori, Oak Park, Council of the Three Fires. Julia in Wheaton, Potawatomi. Donna from Berwyn. Welcome, Donna. Glad you're all here. Keep on checking in. We'll get your voices in, but I'll move us ahead a little bit as well. So I'm Anna Garcia Doyle, the Executive Director of One Earth Collective, which produces the One Earth Film Festival. I want to welcome you to this festival screening event. We hope it will provide us all with rich opportunities for learning, a brave and safe space for important conversations, and a way to move from inspiration to action. We could not do this work without the support of our sponsors and partners. So thank you to OVP Management Consulting Group and Environmentalists of Color. Another quick note, if your circumstances allow, please donate to support One Earth's nonprofit year-round screening events, youth programs, and more at oneearthfilmfest.org.
We gratefully welcome you to One Earth's 11th festival season, and we invite you to join us in turning the tide on our climate crisis. The festival uses the power of film to create a sea change on topics of environment and those intersected with environment, like racial, social, and economic justice. This year, we've adapted a hybrid format where all screenings are virtual, with some accompanying in-person events taking place in the Chicago area. Whether live or virtual, we remain committed to our unique model of gathering in community to raise awareness of the issues, engage in dialogue, and be inspired to act. A powerful image and call to collective action in light of this year's festival theme, Turn the Tide, are the words of Japanese writer Ryunosuke Satoru. Individually, we are one drop. Together, we are an ocean. Our event will take place in 4 parts. Soon, we'll introduce you to some folks who will help us have a rich discussion after the film. Then, we'll watch the film together. After the film, we'll unpack its themes in a facilitated dialogue with our panelists. Please use the chat to share your thoughts, ideas, or questions. We'll end by sharing concrete actions you can take to be part of the solution. These suggested actions come from our panelists and action partners. I'd now like to make a few brief acknowledgments. The first is that, as we reframe narratives around justice, environment, and equitable solutions to our climate crisis, we acknowledge the many filmmakers, film subjects, facilitators, and panelists joining this and other fest events. Thank you. Your wisdom and experiences help us spark and sustain actions for the protection of our One Earth and for the just treatment of its resources and its people. The second acknowledgement is that One Earth Collective is based in Chicago, the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, and home to many other tribes, including today, peoples from over 100 tribal nations. Despite this, there are currently no federally recognized tribes in Illinois, due in part to colonization, relocation, and genocide. One Earth sustains its commitment to presenting films that center Indigenous stories and voices. We believe that beyond acknowledging the native lands we each occupy, we must lift up Indigenous voices and support the work of First Nations groups. If you're in the Chicago area, please support the important work being done by the American Indian Center Chicago, the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative, Chi Nations Youth Council, and others. And watch for the Field Museum exhibition, Native Truths, Our Voices, Our Stories, co-curated with collaborators from more than 100 tribes, opening this May. A third acknowledgement is that shared agreements can help keep our conversation safe and respectful. Please observe the following agreements when participating. Put aside your preconceptions, acknowledge your privilege, internalize what you've learned, approach the conversation with respect, engage your active listening, use I statements, and get comfortable with your own story. One last thing before we meet our facilitator and program participants. If you're active on social media, tell people that this is happening. Amplify these voices and be a part of the community we're building here together. The hashtags for the festival are hashtag OEFF 2022 and hashtag Turn the Tide. And now I'd like to turn it over to our facilitator to introduce themselves, the panelists, and our film.
Hello, everyone. It is both an honor and a pleasure to be with you tonight. My name is Reesheda Graham-Washington, and I am the principal consultant for RGW Consulting, a DEI and anti-racism consulting practice that invites its partners to reimagine and generate wonder, getting curious about the impact of inequity and injustice in our world through coaching, training, consult, and facilitative practices. And tonight will be no exception to the rule. I will be your facilitator this evening, and I'd like to start by inviting you into the One Earth Film Festival model. We often watch movies and then talk out of the theater without really reflecting on what we've seen and how we felt about it, or what implications what we've seen even has on our lives. Tonight, we plan to have a rich, thought-provoking dialogue sparked by exposure and joined by knowledgeable, committed panelists who I'm already fangirling all over already. We look forward also to having you participate, enriching the dialogue with your reflections and questions in the chat and exploring ways to take related action. We hope that embodiment will ensue after you see the film tonight. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the panelists, and you'll hear more about them at the end of the film. The panelists will be a part of our special International Women's Day film program tonight. So I'd like to first introduce you to Jafri from the Chicago Learning Exchange and BabyGami, Zorbari Nwidor from Chicago Adventure Therapy, and Holly Morris, the infamous director for our film. And we'll learn a little bit more about the panelists after the film tonight. So can the panelists all wave and just say hi to everybody? We're all here. And now it is my pleasure to bring up the director of Exposure, Holly Morris, to introduce her to the film Exposure. Holly. Holly, you're muted.
Fix that. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. Thank you for that lovely introduction. So yes, I'm the director of Exposure, which is a polar expedition film about a group of women from the Arab world and the West who teamed up to attempt to ski to the North Pole, 90 North, over the frozen, semi-frozen Arctic sea ice. It's a film that is I think, you'll be the judge, but operates on many levels. It's an environmental film. It's a film about women's empowerment. And it's a great adventure story that is a testament to the power of the natural world on all of us as individuals. That's what we set out to do. I look forward to hearing your reactions to the film and having a robust conversation about what film can do in the world besides entertain us.
Thank you so much, Holly. And now I'll turn to arguably one of the best parts of the evening, our opportunity to enjoy the film. See you all afterwards for a rich post-film conversation. There was so much to take in the film. I'm Reesheda Graham-Washington, your facilitator for the evening, and I'm already worn out with thoughts and ideas about the themes and the concepts and the exhilaration and the exhaustion that we just witnessed. And I know that it must all be running around in your hearts and minds as well. So we just want to take about 3 to 5 minutes to entertain the question, what are some of the scenes, the people, the lines, the themes in the film that you remember, poignant ones that will be with you always? Please share a couple of those thoughts and ideas, impressions. Share them in the chat group now. Let's just take a few minutes to do that now. Somebody is already saying how inspiring that the movie was, that it was inspiring, but also so sad, that it was so good. There's literally a quote. Wow, 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 wow. And you know that you have a good film in front of you when you're left without words. And all you can say is wow. People have been talking about the 11 women from the film, calling their expedition an amazing undertaking. One comment, Ms. comment, and this was actually in my notes too, this isn't the end. This is the beginning of many things. And this idea of where does an end and a beginning begin? And the fluidity in that is so clear. Dory says she's crying, jubilated, love across the boundaries. They journeyed inside what was an intense moment that they journeyed outside, that there's a journey inside happening while there's a journey outside happening. So inspiring. So many of you are capturing the intensity of the film, but also capturing the ways that it causes us to slow down and process and think and reflect. Phyllis, hey, Phyllis, it's so good to see you. Everyone was helping each other over the ice lumps. And I'm trying to figure out whether we're talking about the literal ice lumps or the figurative ice lumps. There were so many ice lumps in this film, absolutely. And I think it's really important to think about the way that Felicity curated the journey. The intentionality that was so inherent in how she selected the women for this journey really made the journey. Cheryl says that when the woman was talking about the polar bears, and if they had to shoot them, they shot to kill so that the polar bear wouldn't suffer. Such a contentious moment. You almost don't know what or how to feel. But we've all had these moments in our lives where we've had to hit hard or strike hard or not at all. And that moment made that so clear and so poignant. Mary Susan says, it was beautiful to see the cooperation, the teamwork, and the love. And that it really just intensified and multiplied, I would say exponentialized over the course of the journey. And how they had this connection after they did the first training. And by the time they did the second training, that it's remarkable that these women weren't together every day over the 2 years that led up to the actual journey at the North Pole, but that they had also, because of their common experiences, even when they were apart, they were growing together. And that was very, very clear. Abhishek Patel says, Miriam's confidence and perseverance to join her team's victory at the North Pole, despite having frostbite. At the end, you're so right, Abhishek. I was thinking to myself, did she make the journey or did she not make the journey? It is no longer even clear by the end of the film. Like, would I say she did it? Would I say she didn't do it? And it doesn't even matter anymore. We get to see them all together at the end of the journey. It was so beautiful and so remarkable. 2 years to prepare for what could have taken someone an entire lifetime. Fascinating. And that these women come from so many different walks of life. And that some of them even said, I believe it was Anissa at one point in the film, her biggest reservation is that she, as a woman, was going to go on this trip with all these women. And she's like, oh, it's going to be drama. And by the end, all she could talk about is how she didn't want it to end. So transformational. Donna says that it was interesting to hear the women discuss polygamy among themselves, They recognized that the wives involved knew they needed to get along and help each other. And they also questioned what would happen if a woman decided to have more than one husband. That conversation got really complicated really quickly. I can't wait to hear from Holly on that conversation. I was literally I watched the movie twice. The first time I watched it, I was making bacon and eggs and kind of watching and cooking and watching. And I heard and I was like, wait a minute, I almost burned my eggs. I'm like, what? This is provocative. What are these women talking about here? And it just really spoke to the complexity and the layers of relationship and how things can be normative culturally for one group of people and have another group of people continue to struggle with that, and that's okay. Anna herself from One Earth says, the feeling that the precarious ice sheets are a metaphor for us taking bold but sometimes scary steps in the times of climate change. And to Anna's point, this notion of which climate is changing, right? There's the literal climate change, and we see the impact it's having on the journey, but the climate of these women's lives are changing. Gender role climate is changing, right? Geographical location is informing the change in the climate. And all of that is at play simultaneously. No wonder why we miss each other so much as human beings. All of the climates are changing. Some are better for it and some are not. And that's really what the movie begs of us all. So thank you all so much for sharing some of your thoughts and ideas with us about what you saw and what you were exposed to in the film. And so I just want to bring the panel back, and I want to take an opportunity to introduce each of the panelists. I am honored, and if you've been in my International Women's Day film for One Earth, this happens every year. I'm amazed every single time. I get to be amazed every single time. And today is no exception to the rule. Please let me introduce to you Holly Morris, the filmmaker, the storyteller, the director of Exposure. I almost can't even read the bio. I'm in total awe. For 2 decades, Holly Morris has told and championed pro-woman cross-cultural stories on the global stage. She is an internationally known filmmaker, author, and presenter. Her last feature film, The Babushkas of Chernobyl, beautiful, affectionate, and stirring, according to the New York Times. This film premiered at the LA Film Festival, where it won the Jury Award for directing, the first of nearly 24 awards received before being broadcast worldwide. The film's story, based on her print journalism, is about a defiant community of women, surprise, surprise, who live inside Ukraine's radioactive exclusion zone, and is also the basis of her popular TED Talk. So welcome, Holly. Thank you for being with us tonight. I also want to introduce Sana Jafri as the founder and CEO of BabyGami, which is building a diverse community and products so families can save space and enjoy life outside. In her day-to-day work, Sana also serves as executive director of the Chicago Learning Exchange, a network of more than 200 youth serving organizations who are catalyzing participation in out-of-school learning. Sana completed her master's in public policy and administration at Northwestern University and received her undergraduate degree in secondary teaching from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Sana's most important role is also serving as mom to 2 little boys. And Zorbari Nwidor is senior program staff at Chicago Adventure Therapy. Her organization brings youth and families from underserved communities to the outdoors and uses outside space and sports to provide therapeutic experiences. This is our panel for the evening on International Women's Day. You're welcome, everybody. And so now we will turn to our a few questions for our panelists. If you have questions for our panelists, please enter them into the chat. We'll try to get to some of those questions with you. And there are so many good places to start. I guess where I want to begin is there are so many paradoxical moments in this film. Holly, please share with us some of the paradoxes that drove you to make this art for us?
Oh boy. Well, it was driven by that, as you can imagine. I mean, I think that something you said at the end of your initial reactions to the film, which, by the way, I have to say, you're a fabulous moderator, and I wish you'd come with me on the road as we show this.
I'm there. As long as you don't go to the North Pole, me and you.
No. We're going to screen in the Arctic, actually. But yeah, I know you articulated so well so many of the what are the bedrock themes of the film that are sort of quietly and maybe not so quietly hidden in there, I think. And I guess the one thing I just wanted to comment on was the idea of, hopefully we didn't hit it too hard, but the metaphor in that women from different cultures having to come together and do something that nobody thought was possible and everybody counted them out of at the top of the world, which is climate change ground zero, and succeeding. I mean, this is no small metaphor for what we need to do to address climate change. So, I mean, I think that's the big one there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were so many struggles. And I think about all the reasons the world gives for why a group of diverse women, 11 of them, should not even embark on such a journey. And there would be all kinds of comments about strength and capacity. And here these women are completing their expedition 3 days early. So talk a little bit about the making of this film and the timing and the bandwidth that was required to construct such a film.
Well, it was a extremely complicated production. We started in 2016 with the first training expedition, the cold weather training in Iceland, where we first met the team and they first met each other. So it was important from a storytelling point of view to be there at that point. Although I will say that Felicity was definitely, still checking me out, and all the women were checking my team out to make sure that, we all had to share the same value system, I think, to make this effort. And so, gosh, there's so much to say about the making of it. So we started there, and then over the course of 2 years, trained twice in Iceland, once in Oman. And then, of course, I spent some time at home with some of the characters. And the primary expedition in the North Pole was, physically very obviously demanding, but also, I had two amazing women cinematographers with me, Ingeborg Jacobson and Catherine Barrows, and they were incredible rock stars, doing everything that the women did in the film. But sort of high heels and backwards, is to use another Fred and Ginger metaphor. It was like, they were on skis, pulling sledges themselves. We were all pulling sledges, pulling our camera batteries. But I mean, so it was complicated. And excuse my dog, which seems to be yapping. But in a situation where thousands of things could go wrong, enough went right, that they were able to pull off the expedition, and we were able to pull off the film.
Absolutely. Felicity says, we set out for the normal, we see what waits for us, and maybe we'll actually get to see the North Pole.
Yeah.
And I want to go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I love how she brings home this idea of what everybody's true north is. It's not all the same, and nor can you stay on true north, which was funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Like, we're there. Wait, are we there? Did we get it? Wait, I think we're back there, right? And sometimes when we focus too much on the destination, we miss the journey, and then we get frustrated because the destination keeps moving, right? And so I want to definitely tie Sana and Zorbari in here, because this feels so relevant to the work you do with young people. You set out and you see what waits for you, and maybe you get to see the North Pole. Felicity also says, we may be chasing the North Pole to stand on it, and we may only be on it for a little while before it moves. Why is it important for young people to have these kinds of adventurous experiences? Zorbari, go for it. I think you're muted.
Yes, I was trying to find my mute button. Unmute.
No worries.
So yeah, Reesheda, why is it important for young people to have these kind of experiences? In my experience with young people of color in the outdoor space, it's super important to know that the journey is what's most important. And there's going to be different paths to take to reach the goal. And then at the end of the day, the goal is going to continue to change. And I feel like there are a lot of people who are so stuck in their way, or this is what I want to do. And they're not open to what possibilities could be. And so it's important for them to know that, hey, the end is not the end, as was mentioned. Like, how do we decide what's the beginning, what's the end, and whatnot?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sana.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And wow, Holly, it was amazing. So thank you. I feel so esteemed to be on this panel with you and Zorbari and just the film. I didn't actually know why I was here, but I think like a lot of my story is connected to the story of a lot of these women. So I'm a Muslim woman that is embarking on creating a startup for the outdoor industry. And so, the outdoor industry, I'm in this program with REI called the Path Ahead Ventures program. And it's a program specifically to diversify the outdoor industry. So I think just the centering the story of like these women of color was really just profound. Reesheda, you are also an awesome facilitator. So I will go back to the question that you said, which is like around young people, which is actually my day job. So today's International Women's Day, and I think it's really powerful that we're here today because there is a participation gap in the outdoor industry of who gets to participate in the first place. We saw that in the stories of Misbah, Anissa, and some of the other women that are in this. So I think it's really profound. For young people, there's a participation gap, especially just where we are located in Chicago, of who gets to access the outdoors. And that's really core to the Chicago Women Exchange's work. And I'm sure Chicago Adventure Therapy, because it shouldn't be about where you're born. Everyone should have access to the outdoors because we're all members of, the earth and should be able to experience it. But we know that there's systemic barriers that continue to exist that discourage that. So I guess I just want to send home that I think it's Melanin Base Camp, had some research recently showing that, by the time women are a little older, they're participating at like the 50-60% range, but that participation drops down 20% by and so there's, again, just these gaps, and we have to make sure that we're addressing these gaps in opportunity. And Holly, your story is just really profound because it shifts the narrative in many ways. So thank you for that.
It really shifts the narrative in so many layers of ways because, Sana, even as you named that, I'm curious about how those demographics evolve over time and how they evolve rooted in gender orientation. There was all of this talk in the movie about, hold on, let me look it up, the women and the men, and who had the women's roles and the men's roles of the house. And it hit my body hard, this notion of the indoor work being women's work and the outdoor work being men's work, even on a journey where there were all these women, these tropes still manifested themselves. So I'm just curious about how the work that you're all doing defies this notion of outdoors being for the masculine or the male.
Yeah, I could kick it off. So BabyGami is building space-saving products to help really families, but consumer research shows that moms and women are the main purchasers. So really helping women get back once they have a baby, get back to their love of the outdoors. A lot of women sometimes lose part of what their selves are once they become mothers. And, they might love the outdoors and they lose that. So we're trying to make sure that they have those opportunities to maximize their fun with their new little one, while minimizing their footprint in space. But yeah, that's how we're doing it with BabyGami, but I'd love to hear from everyone else as well.
Sure. Zorbari?
I can chime in on that. So Chicago Venture Therapy works with a lot of different demographics. We actually work with refugee young people, mostly from Middle East and Northern African countries. We work with LGBTQ plus young people, people of color and low-income communities, different summer camps for low-income people, young people who are in the DCFS system and or taken away from their families for whatever reason, or reunited and are receiving therapeutic assistance and are recommended by their therapist. And so a lot of the things that we do in CAT are outdoor sports, but we're very heavy. The executive director is actually a kayak and canoe coach. As a woman in the kayaking world, she is one of 5 in the United States at her level of paddling. It's a very male heavy, testosterone heavy environment. And so that's something that she's breaking that barrier and also bringing young people in the Chicagoland area with her. So all of us as the staff members who have been with the organization for many years, myself, I started when I was 15. I'm now a level 3 coach, and I'm hoping to continue that and, continue coaching people. So like at 17, I'm at a symposium coaching young, older people in their 50s, 60s, retired, have their entire lives ahead of them. And I'm the one who's sitting there telling them, like, this is how you do a forward stroke. And it really empowers you as a youth and a youth of color and a woman, and just all those different things put together to be like, wow, this is something that I have expertise in. I know what I'm doing. And this community that is, so masculine, so white, so this, I'm breaking through and I'm here and I'm, setting the stage and starting a path and a journey for other young people. And so we do that a lot. Many of our young people are coaches and then continue in the coach path. We also have a climbing community. And again, the climbing community is strong, masculine, male run. And we have a woman who's actually running is an LGBTQ community woman who is taking young women into the climbing world and breaking those barriers and, making it actually something that's different, that's diverse, that's equal, because these are sports that people wouldn't be able to afford. Like there aren't any people of color in the paddling community because it's an expensive sport. And so we make it affordable for young people and for them to get there, for them to get certified, for them to be known, and to continue whatever journey they decide to go through.
Thank you so much for that, Zorbari. I know that we're going to have an action orientation segment before our time is up here, and you are equipping folks beyond the Chicagoland area to know what to commit their hearts and their minds and their pocketbooks to. This feels very important. This transformation should be accessible to everyone. But the big question is, what happens after the moment? These 11 women, not just the 11 women, definitely the 11 women, but Holly, this has to impact your life as well. So our viewers and our listeners, they want to know, what do you know about the lives of the women post North Pole expedition? How have lives been changed? What has been the impact of this trip for any and all of the women who were a part of the journey?
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say it was a really life transforming experience for all of them in different ways, sometimes quite personally, and then sometimes it really just changed what they did next. I mean, Anissa proceeded to do a 1,200-mile trek across the Arabian desert and to get youth outdoors. That was her mission in the region, in her part of the Arab world. And Misbah has been galvanizing her community in mostly in Manchester in the UK where she lives, and getting women from her mosque out biking on the weekends and hiking. And Felicity herself is quite a globe-trotting explorer. I mean, the truth is that COVID hit shortly after this, right? So everybody's been shut down. But I would say, a lot has come from it. And I guess on that point, what I would love to get to to talk to this brain trust about is how can we use a film that embodies these ideas and values that we are all on board with, to make change and to further to I think there's a lot of value in seeing images on a screen and lives transformed, the kind you don't usually see, especially for girls and women. But what's next? I mean, I'm personally interested. How do you think a film can be used as a tool to forward what you all are doing? Because we're all in a way doing the same thing, but how do we make some action?
Yeah, I would love to hear from Zorbari and Sana on that for sure. Any thoughts?
I think I think that we would love to showcase the film with our network of youth serving organizations just so we can help get the word out. I mean, I think that I'm a little older, I'm not in the teen range anymore, but, I would say that young people are really active and thinking about how to be, climate citizens, not just world citizens. And so I think we're, Holly, you started off by the metaphor of this impossible task of shifting climate change. At times it feels impossible, but it's done. And I feel like this generation can help us get to done if we continue to advocate, and the film helps us on that journey. In terms of actionable steps, I could commit CLX to, helping to showcase if we wanted to have our vision is this collective vision and action of this collective of youth serving organizations. So happy to do that. And then for the REI group, I've been telling everyone about exposure and trying to get the word out. Those are people that are all people of color or LGBTQ folks that care about the same issues and are trying to change the outdoor industry too, because the industry is obviously influential to the issues as well. So that's what I can commit to right now.
Yeah, so certainly there is a lot to commit to. And Sana, I agree with you. If the young people of this generation are able to help us get to that done, that's what it is. Me, myself, I'm up for an expedition. Holly, I don't know if you're still trying to film, but yeah, I'm in my 20s, so I'm trying to figure out some kind of water-based expedition at some point in time in my life that would be monumental, that would be inspiring, that would have an impact and would actually mean something. So, the waterways are super important in that aspect for people getting out, drinking clean water. A lot of things that we use as recreational water is something that other people in other countries are not even able to have clean water to begin with. So just bringing that kind of awareness and just having our young people as the face of it, especially diverse group of young people as the face, promoting us in REI and having these beautiful expeditions that have people of that are of color in those expedition pictures, and magazines for the outdoors, having people of color. It's super important to see somebody who looks like you doing something that you wouldn't originally do or wouldn't even think about doing or never thought it was a thing to begin with out there, and just promoting that and bringing it to the communities themselves, because it can be in an outdoor magazine, but the people who are going to see outdoor magazines are not the young people on the south side of Chicago. They're not going to read an outdoor magazine. So bringing that awareness and their faces of people that look like them to their communities is super important for the future.
So you all are talking a lot about young people and how they can connect to this film. And I think that my 11-year-old is, pretty over her mom doing stuff like this. It's no longer an exciting thing. She's going to be on some recording. There's going to be a thing tonight in our house, and I have to be quiet and can't be loud with my friends because of it, right? But I think I was playing the film. The second time I was playing it, I was in the car. I wasn't driving, but I was in the car. And it forced her to have to hear what was going on. So I'm done with invitations because those don't work as much anymore. But if she can see over my shoulder, she can get curious about what's happening. So she starts leaning in and she's gradually and she's like, are those all women? And I said, yes, those are all women. Where are they? That looks like, that's like the North Pole. And I'm like, yeah, that's where they are. And she's like, how are they doing that? And why are they doing that? And do they know each other? Like, she has all these questions that she doesn't even really want to be asking, but it's such an enthralling film that she's being roped into the process. And she says, if that's what they love, they should do it, mommy. And I said, well, what do you love like that? And of course, for her, it's gymnastics, but I think she's thinking about like this notion that you can do extraordinary things because she witnessed a bunch of women from all walks of life doing extraordinary things. There's some inspiration that comes from that experience, right? And then we'll go out and change the world. We'll go out and do all kinds of things. But what the viewers want to know, Holly, is what inspired you to do this thing? What was your inspiration?
Well, I have been, in some ways, I have never been to the North Pole before, but this has been in my wheelhouse for my career. I first started in the 90s. I worked in publishing and did a series of books about women in the outdoors and travel, and this whole idea of diversifying these worlds, always flipping the script, right? Whether it was in print media or the next project I did when I moved into TV was called Adventure Divas, searching the globe for a new kind of heroine. So it's always to me, it's about having the unexpected, usually unlikely, usually the voice never given power historically, being the narrator of their own story. And also the idea of putting images forward that one can see their own potential in. So whether it's your daughter pursuing her gymnastic passion, or it's, somebody, whatever your passion is, it's not so much going to the North Pole or summiting Everest or being so I guess that was my inspiration, and that's always been my inspiration, right? Because I don't know, that because I work in media and that's what I know how to do, and that's always. I grew up in a sports family in Chicago. My parents were sportscasters there, and I credit my mom, who was covering Title IX and blazing a trail in women's sports, 30, 40 years ago. And so, yeah, I just think you just have to keep fighting the fight. I hate that this is the fight we're still fighting right now in 2022. But I hate that your daughter saw it and thought, what is that? That's so unusual. We just have to guess. We just have to keep flipping the script. And then someday your daughter will just not even pay attention because it'll be normal.
It'll just be normal. Absolutely. It's certainly fascinating. Here's the question I want to pose to all three of you. Last question before we get into the action round for our listeners and viewers. Someone said these women all wanted to go on this journey and were willing to work so hard to be on this journey. But the general population may not be so willing to make the changes necessary to save the earth. Do you think we can do it? And what's one way that we can? Each of you. We can start with Sana.
Yeah, I like to live life on the positive side, I guess. So I'll say that, yes, I think we can do it. I think the story shows that the impossible is possible if you dream big enough, if you plan for it. What I could do personally is I have 2 nieces, or 3 nieces actually, that are, you got to change starts from within the closest. So I have 3 nieces that I would love to show exposure to. They're also Muslim young women that I think that this film would be really powerful for them to see. I don't think they've probably ever seen anything like that. So thank you, Holly, for sharing that for me personally. And, I'm happy to also just share we work with a network of youth serving organizations in Chicago. So really happy to think about how we can collectively help build that future. I don't think it's just on one person. I think it's a collective.
Absolutely. Zorbari.
I was listening to your response. Reesheda, can you repeat what the question was?
Yes. So some folks are asking, can we really impact climate change given the perceived apathy globally around the topic? Is this something we can impact? And if so, tell us one way that we can.
Yes. So my answer to that is I think that we definitely can. I'm a glass half full person. But even with that being said, I think that a lot of people are aware of what's happening. A lot of people who are older, a lot of young people, and it's going to take some time to address it, but it's something that's happening, and the tide is turning in that direction. So it is something that I think we can address and make happen. Make the climate change a little bit better and not so drastic. And one way that we can do it is to continue to put out films like this that show inspiring work that people are doing out there. And I know this festival is full of different films from different producers and directors about climate change, about the earth, about inspiring stories, and to continue to put out this narrative and this information to people. And, like small things like having our kids' sisters or our siblings or our kids see these things and be inspired is just a huge step in the right direction. And like one way that I think that, myself and Kat can make this happen is that we just recently got a grant from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And there's so much that we can plan and can do. And we're taking ideas from a group of young people, and they're going to make projects that are going to help the environment in some way, shape, or form. And anything is possible at this point. Collaborations are possible. And just the fact that they're seeing what's happening and they want to make a change. They helped apply for this grant, and they want to move forward with it. So just, committing to leading that group of young people to use what is now afforded to them to make a change in their community. And a small change in their community is going to be a big change in the world as we put it out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And the work that you're doing in galvanizing young people around this topic, Zorbari, is wonderful. Holly, can we do it? And what should we do?
Yes, we can do it. We will do it. We have to adapt. I am not a glass half full person, but I still believe that. And I guess I would just say that while this film is a document about climate change and other things, I think its real power lies in its possibility around women's leadership and girls. So I think that is going to be the key in all of this, and all of the things we're articulating is triggering a sort of a massive revolution on that front worldwide. And that's going to be our best shot at wrangling this climate crisis into shape.
I love what you shared there. My mission statement is only ever empower women, because I believe that if all we ever had was empowered women, we probably could tackle all the other things. And that's not to disempower anyone else. It is simply to empower all the women everywhere. And the impact, I think, could be exponential. So thank you all for what you've shared there. And now we want to turn also to our listeners and viewers and give them a chance to turn to action. Amanda Gorman from Earthrise, her poetry entitled Earthrise says, "There is no rehearsal. The time is now, now, now. Earth, pale blue dot. We will fail you not." No rehearsal. Time is now. This earth, this pale blue dot. We will fail you not. And that means that it is incumbent upon us to do something. So let's just have our little discussion about what those things can be. Listeners and viewers, share with me a little bit about what your hopes are. Let's take a few minutes to turn to the topic of action. Can each of you just share some ideas for what actions people can take to be a part of the solution? Actions anyone can take. Actions communities, organizations, governments, or companies can take. So many of you lead those companies and organizations and governments and communities. Tell us, what are some actions that we can take? And I'll share those with the larger group as they come in. So Donna shares that as a part of a low economic status community, she cherished, sought, and cultivated outdoor and earth connecting opportunities and ones that didn't require a lot of income. So she wants to join efforts to widen that net of opportunity to the many that have been left out. And some of the folks that you can come alongside Donna are right here on our panel tonight. So feel free to do that as well. What are some of the other actions? Patricia says, thank you for this remarkable contribution and the nudge to get outdoors and help to not only enjoy it, but work to preserve it. And isn't that the first step, friends? We have spent quite a bit of time inside for the last 2 years. So it should be a short walk to get you to go outside. You'll be surprised. You'd be surprised who you can connect with and conspire with towards climate change and evolution in all of these climates that are changing. You know, to Holly's point, there are so many climates that we're changing. And I remember in our pre-call together, you mentioned that because of some of what is going on in our political climate, that it's possible that there may not be any more expeditions to the North Pole. So there are political climates, there are environmental, ecological climates, there are socioeconomic climates, there are the climate around gender and gender expectations and gender identity. That climate is changing. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. Lori says, I want to talk to our elected officials to really move them on climate change. How can you be that catalyst for the folks we have put into office and get them to get serious and curious about this topic? And I also want to pose this question to the panelists. What is your next, probably just to go to work tomorrow? It sounds like most of what you're doing is already so relevant. And I'm going to share that my consulting firm, RGW Consulting, does a trip called The Journey Together. It's a 3 to 4 day pilgrimage or journey to the South, where we take a tour of several civil rights museums and historical sites and landmarks. We have talks and seminars and workshops with the understanding that we're taking this journey because we want you to have tangible, practical application from what you've learned and been inspired by as we do our journey in the South part of America, witnessing the history of the civil rights movement. My next step is I'm going to work with Anna and One Earth Film Festival to think about how our journey is impacting the climate. How is it impacting the environment? And what kinds of steps can we take in our civil rights journey together to be more ecologically sound? So that's my commitment. Anything you all want to share from the panel? A next best step.
I can start. I think, the organization that I run is called Chicago Learning Exchange. And so learning is really core. I think that this film helps us learn about all the different types of journeys. I mean, I'm sure these folks that are on the audience are already well-versed in the issue, but I think helping to kind of spread the gospel across others that might not be as familiar with the climate crisis is just imperative. There's a lot of pushing of the narrative that there isn't a crisis, et cetera, and things like that. So I think starting there might just be a baseline. And anyone can do that regardless of where you're at. You don't have to be in an institution. You could just talk to your neighbor or whoever it is. On the bigger scale, we know that there's some major offenders, right, that are causing the climate crisis, like businesses, corporations are some of the biggest. So how can we really make sure that we're creating legislation and policy and advocating for that change? Because it's really corporations and a human-made crisis that we've gotten ourselves into, and that can stop. It might take a little longer, but it is possible. So I think that there is power in many, and we can make that change together. So that's kind of on the global, kind of like macro scale. On the micro scale, happy again to connect with Anna at the One Earth Collective. We have a festival called the Chicago Learning Days, which is really trying to showcase all the abundance of these learning opportunities in Chicago, and connect, really focus on South and the West side of Chicago, which has been historically disinvested, to really to ensure that everyone has these opportunities, especially to access the outdoors. So if there's opportunities for us to partner in that in the future, I definitely welcome that. So thanks for including me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sana. A couple more take action opportunities. We can connect with nature, from the filmmaker for Get Outdoors, connect with your local environment and local community. Chicago Adventure Therapy. Hello. We can go and become a part and connect with the community of Chicago Adventure Therapy, incorporate nature in everyday life and educate those who may not know how to start taking action. Earth Remedies is a source for that. Living Lightly, Live Lightly on Earth, empowering women and girls through camfed.org and womensglobal.org. Draw Down Carbon by Educating Girls. Education shores up resilience and equips girls and women to face the impacts of climate change. Go to drawdown.org for more information there. You can communicate and learn. You can always communicate and learn. Justice Outside convenes the field around critical issues like cultural relevance, the link between health and outdoor access, as well as building the next generation of environmental advocates. JusticeOutside.org, and join One Earth's virtual book discussion groups for All We Can Save. This begins the week of March 13th, 3/14, Pi Day, perfect day to be a part of a community, right? Sign up on oneearthfilmfest.org for All We Can Save virtual book discussions starting the week of March 14th. And then use your voice, vote, organize, write, call, talk to the people you voted into office. Consider climate issues on local, national, and global levels. Help pass climate justice policies. Pass policies to protect your local environment. Learn more about this at scorecard.lcv.org. Support, invest, and divest, donate, and sponsor. The sky's the limit for what we have the capacity to do if we're willing to come together and get it done. So in the coming days, we'll email you these tasks, the take action points. You'll get that in your email. You'll also get a recording of this discussion and a transcript of the chat with ideas and resources that were shared here tonight as well. Are you ready? Are you ready to turn the tide? This is the final reflection. Are you ready to turn the tide? As we close out, I hope you felt called toward One Earth's 11-year theme of turning the tide. Please share in the chat ways you're ready to join in turning the tide in our climate crisis. What do you feel compelled to do as a result of this event tonight? What do you feel compelled to do as a result? Are you ready? What do you want to do? Let's see. Someone says that Caucasian people need to do their internal work of dismantling white supremacy and welcome and encourage and offer assistance if needed for people of color to participate in the outdoors. Someone else says we're done hiding and ignoring this subject, this critical subject of climate change and the dangers associated with it, that they're committing to having conversations with others about it, listening to those concerns, listening to personal stories, and talking about it with everyone that they know. And then finally, Nate wants to reach out to elected officials to encourage President Biden through executive action to declare a climate emergency. Sometimes people don't pay attention until they recognize that there is something urgent happening in the air. So I want to take this time to thank all of our panelists for being here. I'm honored every year, and this year, every year tops the year before. Sana, Zorbari, Holly, thank you all so much for the critical work that you do. To learn more about our panelists and stay in touch with their work, see the links on the slide. It'll be coming up shortly so that you can stay in touch. Remember to tweet, post, or share about what you just experienced online and in social media. Not because we're the cool kids who got a chance to come to the film festival, but because it is through our relationships that we actionize one another towards embodying these important energies to change the universe, okay? If you found value in today's event, Donate to One Earth Film Fest and join us again this week, Earth Week in April and throughout the year. Thanks to each and every one of you for being here and for participating. And on behalf of One Earth Film Festival, I say good night to you all. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.